A prison is a building in which people are legally held as a punishment for a crime they have committed or while awaiting trial. As of right now, the American criminal justice system holds almost 2.3 million people in 1,719 state prisons, 102 federal prisons, 1,852 juvenile correction facilities, 3,163 local jails, and 80 Indian County jails, as well as in military prisons, immigration detention facilities, civil commitment centers, state psychiatric hospitals, and prisons in U.S. territories. With that, 2.3 million people in prisons right now, 1 out of 5 of them will be in prison and serving time because of a drug crime, regardless of how much of a substance they have on them. Because of this, prison will always be a constant threat looming over their heads. There are over 1 million drug possession arrests a year. That is more than 6 times the amount of arrests for drug sales. This statistic is significant because arresting drug users does not solve the problem of drug use in America. Instead, creates an opportunity for the criminal justice system to extort money from poor drug users, fulfill a quota that allows for politicians to boast about being tough on crime without being completely dishonest. If the police want to effectively reduce the quantity of drugs on the streets in America, they should be going after drug dealers to cut off supply to users.
In 2010, over 1.6 million people were in state and federal prisons within the United States. So 497 out of every 100,000 Americans were in jail, about half of 1%. Less than 1%. That doesn't seem very large, but when you separate that population by race, you recognize that the personal effects of the criminal justice system are very unequally shared.
These arrests aren't equal amongst different races either. In 2011, blacks were incarcerated at a dramatically higher rate of 5 to 7 times more than white people, and such arrests account for almost half of all prisoners incarcerated with a sentence of more than 1 year for a drug-related offense. Black men are not the only demographic that is treated unfairly in the judicial system. Black women are 2 times more likely to be arrested than white women, as well as black children when compared to white children. Nationwide, African American children represent 32% of children who are arrested, 42% of children who are detained, and 52% of children whose cases are judicially waived to criminal court. These statistics show the reality of the prison overpopulation issue and the inherent racism and inequality that exists in the criminal justice system. The NAACP reports that if blacks and Latinos were incarcerated at the same rates as whites, prison and jail populations would decline by almost 40%. All of the previously mentioned statistics show that African Americans and Hispanics are treated unfairly in the judicial system. The court system seems to have leniency with white people, as is shown in the rates of how many African Americans or Hispanics are arrested in the comparison to whites for crimes committed at similar rates.
Saw a period of politicians running on the promise of cracking down on crime. What this led to were much stricter and narrower mandatory sentencing guidelines. Small crimes would send a person to jail whether it was justifiable or not. People who had already been to jail were considerably more likely to return as a result of the 3 strikes law. Sentences were also made much longer, and parole was reduced in an effort to keep criminals off the street.
Percent of Americans say they've used marijuana in the past year, and by and large, most of those smokers are breaking the law. But while blacks and whites smoke pot at similar rates, a comprehensive ACLU study reports that blacks are nearly 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession.
The prison system also takes advantage of the poor. Low-income citizens are more likely to spend time in jail because they cannot afford bail. The definition of the bail system in the United States refers to the practice of releasing suspects from the custody before their hearing on payment of bail, which is money or pledge of property to the court, which may be refunded if suspects return to court for their trial. However, the court system can set bail however high they want. If you cannot make bail, you will be held in jail while you await your trial, which can take up to months or even years. In conclusion, the prison system is very flawed and a corrupt system that exploits and preys on minorities in this country for the sake of maintaining a political image and exercising abusive power. The justice system unfairly doles out criminal sentences for crimes that are of no danger to society, such as nonviolent drug crimes, drug possession, and other laws such as trespassing, loitering,
So
soliciting,
how does bail
etc.
actually work? And is it an unfair system? Well, when you get arrested, you're usually given the option of returning home to await your trial. However, in order to make sure you actually come back, the courts require you to give up a refundable deposit. This deposit is known as bail.
There is a big drug problem in the United States. People in America are abusing illicit drugs such as opioids and amphetamines more than most countries. People in America are more likely than any other nation to take opioids at 61 per 1,000 adults. The U.S. are the #1 users for cocaine. In the past year, 19 out of every 1,000 Americans admitting to using amphetamines. These are some facts on overdoses. In America, every 1 million people, at least 139.1 of them will overdose. However, in a separate country, Norway sees 52.9 overdoses every 1 million people. That is significantly lower than America and most European countries that see 0 overdoses every 25 million people. The United States and Europe has seen a major decrease in cigarettes and alcohol in teenagers in the past years, which is a good thing. On the other hand, there has been a large increase in marijuana, which is not good for the United States. There are 10 states in the USA that have legalized marijuana for recreational use. The University of Michigan did a recent study on teens, and they show that in prior 30 days of 31% of teens in the United States and France have tried marijuana. That's a lot of people if you really think about it. 33 states have legalized it for medical use. They must be 21 years or older to attain for medical use. The USA and France have almost doubled the amount of Europe's use of marijuana, which goes to show that the US is the main user in the world for this drug. On average, 35% of US Americans said that they have used an illicit drug in their lifetime. On average in Europe, 18% of students said that they used an illicit drug in their lifetime. The Czech Republic ranked higher than Europe in the United States with the percentage of 37 saying that they have used an illicit drug. Cocaine is an illicit drug used among adults and teens in the USA, and it is at 3% of consumption rate, and in Europe it is at 2% consumption rate. Obviously, you can see that cocaine is a drug consumed by both Americans and Europeans. It is causing an addiction that is very hard to escape, and it is ruining people's bodies and lives day in and day out. Countries around the world invest in international and domestic efforts to study drug abuse and to help figure out the problems with it. The world is focused on trying to make the issue better because so many people have serious issues with drugs. Europe's main focus is cracking down on drug use, and they are also trying their best to open more recovery systems around Europe to help break away from drug use to live a sober, longer, happier life. Drugs such as nicotine also affect the young people of our community. In a study about teen use of cigarettes, percentage of cigarette use among teens is very low, and that is because of the new invention called the Juul or the e-cig. This invention has overtaken the teen population and the adult smokers that are trying to quit, which is a good thing. Juul does not contain the harmful carcinogens that cigarettes have. However, it does have a nicotine, which is a psychoactive drug that when overused causes addiction. Compared to every other substance, alcohol is the most used drug universally. More than 85% of the nation consumes alcohol. That is a very large amount of the population in the United States, and that is why there are so many problems with drug and alcohol in this country. It is something that people cannot stay away from, and it is a true journey to become sober. Now, granted, not everyone is a drug addict or an alcoholic. but more Americans are alcoholics than not. Some of them don't even know that they are, or they are just scared to get help. A lot of people think that the only way to have fun on the weekends is to go get drunk with your friends, and by having that mindset, they are ruining their bodies early on in life and having major difficulty with life moving forward. The best thing you can do is try your best to stay away from it as much as possible and to stay healthy for the rest of your life.